I've just quit my job as a junior doctor in a nationalised health service, and here are a few things that I've learned. This is based on a tweet that I wrote recently that went uncomfortably viral. So, the first lesson has been that if you recruit enough smart, driven, industrious people, they will heroically prop up a system that is duct taped together and underfunded, or rather misfunded. It's been amazing to see new capacity generated seemingly out of nowhere when it's most been needed over the last couple of years. Number 2, nurses are top bants, and I don't know what it is that keeps them going. They are underrated professionals with such a wide scope of competencies. They intubate you, they can do CPR, they administer IV meds, recognise unwell patients, and their pay doesn't adequately reflect that. What's worse is that I've seen some patients treat them terribly, and then suddenly they're on their best behaviour when the doctor walks in. Number 3, there is no such thing as a peaceful poo. I'm convinced that the phone that you carry around has some kind of sensor that as soon as your bum hits the toilet seat, phone call, phone call, phone call. So you've just got to deal with it when you're at your most vulnerable. Number 4, I have worked with some inspirationally smart people. It has genuinely raised the ceiling for what I thought was possible from human competence. And I've talked about this before, but if you enter a system that is so much larger than you and forges you into a better person by resting on the shoulders of giants over the last couple of hundred years of scientific advancement, it forces you to level up. Number 5, I don't think you're adequately compensated in healthcare. For me, £1,800 a month net isn't enough to keep me here, and I feel like if you applied that same level of time and energy and academic achievement and all of that into any other field, you would get a much higher return on your investment. Obviously, we went into this profession to help people and to care for patients, but free market forces are still at play, and there's easier ways to earn £1,800 without 7 years of training and exams and night shifts and all of that stuff. There's an old Arab saying, La shukra ala wajib, which means no thanks is due for my duty. And while the clap for NHS thing was a really wonderful sentiment, it's a shame that it had to get to that point. It's kind of a public acknowledgement of this market disequilibrium. I'm pretty sure most NHS staff would have preferred the pay rise, especially according to the BMA survey that 30% of doctors were considering leaving because of the pay. Now, I don't mean to seem ungrateful. £1,800 is a secure, solid living. It's not a woe is me situation. I certainly don't take it personally. It's just a signal from a free market that your efforts are better applied elsewhere. This isn't about my personal pay, but it's Twitter and people got fixated on it. But mine ranged from £1,400 to £2,200, and then I reduced my hours to 40 a week, and it went to £1,800. Obviously it climbs as you get more senior, but it would still take me a while to break even on my 70k of student debt. Number 6, a common criticism that you get as a doctor is, oh, you're just a shill for Big Pharma, sponsored pill pusher, all that kind of thing. I can say with absolute confidence that the clinical decisions that we make day to day have nothing to do with the finances. We've always got the patient at the heart of the decision. As you've seen from point 5, we're not paid enough to shill for Big Pharma, and if we're discharging a patient, it's because they are medically fit for discharge, not because we're thinking about the cost of the bed. Number 7. The technology is worse than I had ever expected. If you're spending the day wrestling with a broken printer and a fax machine, that produces a massive barrier to patient care. If you've seen this video where I tracked my time for a day, you'll see that I spend about 3 hours a day battling with technology in some form. Multiply that by every staff member over a year and it becomes hella expensive. Somebody in healthcare IT messaged me recently, bless you guys, thankless job, and he said that the industry standard for spending on tech is about 15% of budget. In the NHS, it's 2%. That is unsustainable. It's a total false economy. Number 8, I made a secret radical discovery that constant beeping alarms, flashing lights and interruptions aren't conducive to clear thinking or clinical decision making. If there's a constant alarm going off and you just learn to tune it out, does it still achieve its purpose? It's not good for mental health and it's not good for patient safety. A simple solution might be to have alert icons on a dashboard or on the bedboard, maybe with a vibration if something's going wrong. We often tell patients how you just need a good night's sleep and you just need to recover, and then we decimate their sleep quality. Sorry, someone was at the door. Number 9. But we've always done it like this is not a satisfactory excuse for a broken process. This is not exclusive to the NHS, I think it's just endemic to any large organisation, but getting stuck in dogmatic traditional ways of doing things just compounds problems further down the line. The NHS spends big bucks on management consultancy firms to make slideshows about vision and narrative and process improvement, whereas if you allocated those funds to clinicians that are dealing with those problems day to day, they would generate far more workable and relevant solutions. Number 10, there's this weird taboo in healthcare that somehow it's exempt from the laws of supply and demand. But it is such a powerful tool, and it would instantly solve problems like the massive backlog of discharge letters that haven't been signed. A fiver would do it, or even a lunch voucher, or even parking at your own place of work. It would solve these problems instantly. I would talk about automating discharge letters entirely, which is feasible, but let's walk before we can run. Number 11. Do you like that? I've learned the importance of user interface. Every extra click or 5-second delay when you're doing a repetitive task like prescribing a medication introduces this avalanche of organizational friction, because that one action is multiplied by the thousands of times it happens over the day. So tiny tweaks to user interface can make massive improvements. I really empathize with tech teams on this because there's huge barriers with implementing little updates. In healthcare, you can't just down tools and pause all patient care, so you have to push updates out live. Number 12. Time is so valuable. A lot of employers take the mick with your time, and it's not intentional. I think just often faulty processes don't get fed up the chain. But being a doctor is more than a full-time job. It's probably 1.3 or 1.5, once you account for the fact that most of my colleagues have to stay late to document things after a shift, or account for the social life disruption, circadian rhythm switches and exams and all of that stuff. So when you look at that from an hourly rate perspective, it makes you think probably the reason that a lot of people are staying in healthcare is really their goodwill and their caring attitude towards the patients, which is amazing, but it's not the way to run a system. There is also the security, the satisfaction, and the sense of sunk cost that you've invested this much time into it, so you've just got to continue. So these things all probably feed into this market disequilibrium. Number 13, junior doctors do a lot more adminning than doctoring. And actually this is kind of a relief early on because you don't want to be making these high stakes clinical decisions at the beginning. But it does seem like a strange way to allocate your highly trained human resources. I mean, I'm no expert, but if I was in charge of a system like that, I'd be thinking, how can I maximize the time that doctors are spending diagnosing and treating patients? Speaking of which, number 14 is if nurses could prescribe paracetamol, I would receive 90% fewer phone calls. Some trusts and some countries do allow nurses to do this, but the deeper point is that if you have a tight bottleneck in a process, that slows the entire throughput. There's a few random insights for you. I've enjoyed it, it's been an absolute ride, and I've worked with some amazing people. I might return at some point, but the system is showing signs of failing. I'm hopeful that there are some smart people that can recover it, but we'll see. Maybe it'll get packaged and sold off. I've got other projects right now, but it got me thinking, what would cause me to return to the NHS? I'm quite a simple guy. More frictionless systems and adequate compensation. That's pretty much it. The tweet caused my inbox to explode, but for any med students, please don't be put off by this. Medicine is still an amazing career. There's huge amounts of intellectual stimulation, satisfaction. It's a privilege to care for patients, and there's great training opportunities. As I say, it levels you up as a person. It's just that I've got other projects that have a higher return on investment for me right now. The main thing is for you to pick a job which matches your set of preferences for time, freedom, impact, satisfaction, and money, whether that's inside or outside of medicine. I would also recommend Michael Singer's work on finding joy in your job, some absolute golden insights in there, and also Ali Abdaal's video on his decisions for leaving medicine, articulated a lot better than I have. Finally, it's 2021, so you cannot rely on your job as your only source of income. So I would recommend to anyone, start diversifying, start building an alternative source of income. Take asymmetric bets, find out what makes you tick, and something might take off. I also had a few people asking about the actual practicalities of running a business while working in a busy job like medicine. I was lucky to be working with an amazing team with Propane, but also some of the tools that we all implemented are covered here in my productivity system. Give it a watch, it will change your life. Speak soon.